Hey, what is up? Welcome to this episode of the Entrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Lofermento, and I'll tell you what, today's podcast guest, it almost seems silly to put him into a little hole called marketing, as important as that is. And I know a lot of you will be tuning in to hear really tangible and growth-oriented marketing strategies from today's guest, which he's 100% going to deliver on. But the reason why I say it feels silly is because it's so clear to me in looking at his work and the way that this guy operates and the team that he's built and the company that he's built is that this is someone who obsesses about growth. Every single thing he does is not just for the sake of marketing. It's not just for the sake of bringing in more revenue. It is about tangible growth. So let me tell you all about today's amazing entrepreneur that I'm so excited to chat with. His name is Justin Green. Justin is an accomplished entrepreneur and digital marketing expert, serving as the founder and CEO of Growth Factor, which is a leading digital marketing agency specializing in scaling businesses through innovative paid media, SEO, and web development strategies. With over a decade of experience, Justin has built Growth Factor into a trusted partner for companies seeking high-performance marketing solutions that deliver measurable growth. That's what I love about it. Kind of the spoiler alert is right in the title of his company, Growth Factor. He does this for a reason. Under his leadership, Growth Factor has consistently driven outstanding results for its clients, leveraging data-driven insights and cutting-edge digital tools to optimize marketing strategies and enhance brand visibility. Now, I'm going to let Justin tell you a lot more about his business, but just a few incredible numbers. His team, if you look at their combined expertise, they have over 71 years of leadership in this field. Their clients have generated over $130 million in gross revenue. They're managing over $3 million annually in digital ad spend. There's a lot we're going to learn from him today, so I'm not going to say anything else. Let's dive straight into my interview with Justin Green. All right, Justin, I am so excited that you're here with us today. First things first, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Brian.
Heck yes, you have got an amazing story, and I know so much of it is fueled by growth, both personally and professionally. So take us beyond the bio. Who's Justin? How'd you start doing all these cool things?
Yeah, so it just kind of came from a place of necessity. Years ago, I kind of worked in the training space, working with civilians and law enforcement and federal agencies. Worked at a company called Sheepdog Response. And specifically, it kind of led me down this path. I started to realize that there was like this really big kind of point of pain between the marketing world and the tech world and, the tactical and defense space. And I was like, you know what? I think there's an opportunity here. And so after leaving that space, I kind of went off into the digital marketing space, really focused on serving that community and have built on that ever since. And recently, this past year, left with one of my business partners at our old agency, started our own firm called Growth Factor. And it's been a very rapid road to success this year so far.
Yeah, I love that overview, Justin, especially because I appreciate the intricacies of growing within. You and I were talking a little bit off the air about the tactical space, for example. There are more limited marketing channels. There's different doors that are open and closed to you. And so you had to navigate those waters. And what I really appreciate about those experiences and what you've brought to Growth Factor is that it also means that you take pride in the process. When we talk about growth, it's so clear to me how important the process is to you. How do you view growth and the process that comes with it? Because I feel like these are words that we throw around a lot in the business and entrepreneurial world, but what do those words mean to you?
Yeah, so we serve a lot of companies outside the tactical space, but one thing I learned, driving e-commerce in that space years ago was that there's a lot of red tape, right? So you could, for instance, paid media in that space was very difficult. So one thing I learned is that you very much had to take an omni-channel approach to marketing coming from that space. And a huge part of that is, made me realize there's this thing that was missing in digital marketing. Everybody was like, oh, it's all paid media, or it's all your web, or it's all organic and social content. The reality is it's no one of those channels, it's all those channels combined. And we learned how to really leverage that and create a holistic experience that allowed you to really accelerate your company's growth. And it also hedged you against certain things that you may not have control of, like social media algorithms that may keep you from being able to reach the ideal audience or a broad audience. So when you really figure out how to drive your e-commerce experience through CRO or SEO for a long-term game plan, or digital paid media to really grow your short-term audience and reel them in and develop a loyal brand following, you really accelerate your growth, whether you're a $1 to $2 million a year brand or you're a $150 million a year brand.
Yeah, Justin, so much to unpack there, even this early on in the conversation, because you're talking about an omni-channel approach. And I love the fact that you so clearly called out, if you're operating exclusively on social media, for example, you're at the mercy of social media algorithms changing. And so a lot of those things are out of our control. And what's the answer there? Diversification. We hear it so much in the world of investing and finance. So of course it makes sense within the context of marketing. With that said, though, Justin, as busy business owners, there's a million things we need to focus on. How do we even start putting together a cohesive plan to be present on all these different platforms? Is this something that first we say, let's get really good at social, or let's get really good at paid ads, and then we expand from there? Or does it even start at a much higher level than that, where you put together a blueprint? I'd love to hear the beginning building blocks of that roadmap.
Yeah, so I think it really depends on what your brand is, who your end consumer is, and what your goal is long term. I don't think there's any one right approach for any brand. Again, it kind of comes back to that, who your core audience is. And so while you may have one brand who it's going to be much easier to reach a very direct consumer online audience where you can run a lot of paid ads to it. You may have one brand who has a better on the ground activation approach, maybe through events, where they can reach and develop that face-to-face interaction with the consumer, really develop that brand loyalty and sell the story. I think that's also a lost art today, is the ability to sell the story. I'll mention one of our clients, Iron Oak, for instance. They're the original Pearl Snap Performance polo shirt company here in Texas. We help manage all their digital paid media. They're running a very large paid media program, but they got their start doing a very small paid media campaign, but they were very heavy boots on the ground, going to a lot of rodeos all over the country, and really just that old traditional marketing. And that was important, right? Because it allowed us to tell a story. They were able to connect with the consumer, and then we were able to take that story and leverage that into the digital campaign to then spread that in areas they may not necessarily be able to reach, and really find that core audience, bring them in, develop that brand loyalty.
Yeah, hearing you talk about these things, Justin, you really take me back to the beginning days of my own entrepreneurial journey, because I feel like we all have built-in biases towards different marketing channels, and a lot of it is probably what we've been exposed to as consumers on that side of the equation. Hearing you talk about SEO, I remember where my 18-year-old brain went, and I was like, oh, it's free. I can do things that Google will reward. And then hearing you talk about paid ads, I often hear that misnomer of, oh, paid ads are too expensive, as if it's an expense rather than an investment that yields rewards. Talk to us about those different channels and how you feel that they still play together, because I do feel like too many people are pushing people towards one solution. It just sounds to me like you're super open-minded with regards to all the platforms and availabilities.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, to your point, I think that you do have to look at everything as a holistic omni-channel approach, right? So if you are running paid ads, paid media, if you're not converting at the website level well, you're wasting a lot of dollars on paid media. It's very important that every dollar you're spending to drive a new consumer to your site provides both a good experience and an opportunity to convert them. As we've seen over the last year, especially during an election cycle, the cost per acquisition of a new customer has gone up substantially. And so it's very important that your brand understands how to develop customer lifetime value. The more that you can get that customer to spend over the lifetime, the better your customer acquisition to LTV, or lifetime value of that customer ratio, is. And when you can improve that ratio, you become more profitable, and it's less risky to spend $30, $40, $50, $60 acquiring that customer if you know they're going to spend $1,000, $1,100, $1,200 throughout their lifetime. If you only get them once and they spend $100, you may have eaten all your margin on that initial purchase if you don't get them to come back. So it's really important that the conversion rate and the optimization of the site is there, and that's where we kind of try to tie everything together so that you have this whole approach that from the time you reach that person as an initial potential customer, that you get them through your top of funnel all the way through your funnel, get them to convert, and then you keep them in the funnel over time and you retarget them and keep them coming back for more.
Yeah, Justin, incredible insights. I want to go much deeper here because you clearly, this is second nature to you. You're introducing us to so many important considerations throughout a paid advertising funnel, for example. And I've seen it, having been an entrepreneur for 16 years to this point, is that the companies and the entrepreneurs, even solopreneurs, are crushing in this regard, is that they recognize that ads are not about the sale I can get today. And I think that's a big mindset difference. A lot of people who run an ad saying, I want to sell this book or this thing that I'm selling, and they view it as that is their marketing campaign. Justin, just in that really high level overview that you gave us, it's clear to me you're viewing this as a longer term growth strategy. Talk to us about that psyche and the logistics and the strategy behind what is it that we're selling up front. You talk about lifetime customer value. What are those nurturing sequences look like? How do we squeeze all the goodness out of these campaigns? Because you're running millions of dollars of ad spend in this regard. How are you maximizing the returns on it?
Yeah, so when you're managing campaigns, it's very important to have, bring a customer in, you get them in, they get their first purchase. Then you continue to build the brand history, the brand loyalty, drop them into your email flows, keep them engaged. And that's where SEO can come into play. So SEO can also be a really good long organic play that helps reduce over time the cost of your paid media, because now you're developing all this organic traffic too that can bring in additional customers. And that's really important over time because ultimately it helps kind of give you a hedge against potential changes to the algorithm, increasing cost on customer acquisition and paid ads, and a whole host of other things that typically are outside of a business's control. So again, that's why the omni-channel approach, really, we've seen a big shift in a lot of this in the last 4 years. We went through COVID, we went through an election cycle, all things where we saw both the organic algorithms change, so you couldn't just rely on social media. Then if your brand had a large following, only 8% of your brand may have actually been able to see your content. So now you use paid media to try and reach a bigger, newer audience, bring more people in the fold. And then once you have those people, really what you want to do is get them to your site, capture their data via things like Klaviyo and OpenSend, and then be able to put them into your email. Because once you have the ability to reach your customers via email, or even better with an app with push notifications, you really have a captive audience you can keep in that funnel, keep in that sales cycle, and really add to the customer lifetime value of your company.
Yeah, Justin, hearing the way you talk about these things, it's fascinating because you don't just view it as a hedge. You really are talking about that flywheel effect of, if I can get paid ads working and I can get SEO working, all of these good things lead into the other. It makes me ask you this question, just knowing that you've built an amazing team along the way of growing Growth Factor, as well as timeline-wise, do you focus on one or the other? Do we have to nail the on-page SEO elements before we start tackling paid ads, or vice versa? How the heck, from a timeline perspective, do you manage?
So honestly, I think it depends on the company, their strategy. So in our company, we have brands that are doing $5 million a year in revenue. We have large clients that are doing 150 to 200 million a year in revenue. And then we have some companies that we work with that are doing no direct consumer sales at all. They sell to the government and some other entities like that. And so the strategy for them is going to be very different. And so it all kind of comes back to understanding the company, their goals, really listening to them. There's a lot of companies now that will go out, they'll take your paid media dollars, they'll go out, run campaigns without really understanding your brand or your end consumer. We really try to make an effort to understand our clients, who their consumer is, who their avatar is, and really listen to them, what their goals are, and try to help them achieve their goals so that their dollars are best spent, and that we really take that fiduciary responsibility with their dollars very seriously.
Yeah, Justin, I'll transparently say this to you on the air. It's a little bit of a big praise for you, and the way that we view what you're doing with Growth Factor is that too many marketers fall into that old cliche of, when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. It seems to me like you guys don't view yourselves as a hammer. You're very open to saying, we'll figure out solutions based on whatever growth path it is that you want to go on. With that in mind, I can already see some of the way that you think when you go into a new business is you're looking at lifetime customer value. You've already talked to us about, you've talked about who is it that they want to reach and where the heck are we going to reach those people? What are those considerations that you're looking at when you assess a new business? Is it metrics? Is it positioning in the marketplace? You've worked across all different verticals, all different industries and business sizes. What are those things that you assess in a new business that you work with?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. You'll see a lot of the same things occur from businesses that are doing, again, $5 million a year. We've got a client that we recently onboarded right before the holidays. They do about $60 million a year. Those companies, ironically, had a lot of the same issues. So when we bring a client on, we first try to understand what they've been doing, what's worked well, what has not worked well. Try to understand who they are targeting. Are they truly targeting the right audience? What channels are they marketing to? And is their audience active in those channels? And we try and understand how they've been telling the brand story and how, what kind of offer they've been putting out there. And then we try to reverse engineer that. We try to look at how the site is currently converting, try to understand how that user experience and that journey is on their site to ensure that if we run a marketing campaign on their behalf, that when they get the customer to the site, that they have the best opportunity to get a return on investment. And that's, again, kind of our whole approach is really understanding that holistic omni-channel approach, because that's become, I think, ever more important as the cost of advertising. Social used to be fairly inexpensive to reach an end user. The customer acquisition cost has gone up quite a bit the last few years across all these different solutions. And so really bringing them all together to create a cohesive marketing plan and effort and strategy, I think yields the best result over the long term.
Yeah, Justin, talking about results, I've never asked a marketer this, and I'm really excited to put you on the spot here on the air together. And that is that delicate balance between results, but also patience. Because I would imagine that when you launch an ad campaign, it's not a home run from the get-go. Nobody on planet Earth is capable of a home run their first time at bat, every single time at bat. So what does that process look like? Just knowing how much you and your team love the process behind the work that you do. Paint that realistic picture for listeners and for business owners who probably haven't had the patience in the past to ever see those results that would be awaiting for them. How do you balance results and patience?
A lot of that is balancing expectations. Balancing client expectations is a very, very important part of teaching the client what they can expect from a campaign, especially paid media. And getting them to realize that, one company's conversion rate may not line up with yours, depending on the industry, the product. It's much easier to get a customer to buy a $50, $60 shirt than it is to get them to buy a, $500 thing that may not necessarily be a necessity. It's a want, but not a necessity. And so understanding what that looks like, understanding who the end consumer is, what their appetite for budget is, and then kind of managing and facilitating that. And then it's really utilizing data to tell the story. So when you have really good solid data and you're able to come back and work with the team who's your client and work with your team to tell a story or utilize that data to plan how to best approach the next campaign or the next ad set or how we can improve ad creative. I think that goes a long way because you're able to then provide useful insights. And you have some clients where a 2 to 3 ROAS on ad spend might be fantastic, and based on their margin, that may be all they need. And you have some that may need 5 to 6. And so it's understanding where they're coming from, how much they need to make, and how you kind of get them there, and then get them to buy into the plan. When you get them to buy into the plan, usually you'll have real good win-win situation between the client and the agency.
Yeah, super important considerations. I love the fact that now we're not just talking marketing. We're, of course, talking about the realities of a service-based agency, which is going to pertain to so many different businesses and listeners who are tuning in today. Along those lines, Justin, you've mentioned conversions a few times in our conversation already, and I think that too many people mistake their website as their conversion vehicle, whereas it sounds like you go much deeper than that. The way that you view your paid ad strategy sounds like it's a bit different than the way that you view your SEO strategy. And of course, we need different strategies for different channels. Talk to us about the importance there. When you talk about conversions, how does that differ across channels? How does it differ across campaigns, or the strategy that you've laid out for each of these?
Yeah, I think conversion is hugely important along with the rest of your marketing plan. Had the opportunity years ago to bring a consultant in who's now a very famous CEO. His name is Noah Kagan. Fantastic guy. Created AppSumo here in Austin. And I remember him one time saying, just because you build it doesn't mean they'll come, right? And so that's really important to understand, because yes, you've built the website, but now how does the user experience the website? How does their journey look? How are we bringing them to the website? And what does that look like once they get to the website? And understanding that different industries will convert differently, understanding that different price points and products will convert differently, and understanding what that looks like from start to finish allows you to create a campaign that is going to best reach your end goals or your clients' end goals. And that really starts at top of funnel, looking when they come to the site, what that looks like, how easy are they able to navigate to the site, how easy are they able to get to the point of checkout, are there any points of friction with the customer that you may not realize. And so that's really important to understand that process too, because if you can drive all the ad dollars, all the traffic to a site you wanted, but if they're not able to easily find what they want, able to easily check out, they're not going to convert, and you're just going to waste dollars in the long run.
Yeah, Justin, I want to go there with you in our conversation here today for everybody is traffic, because it's already very apparent that you don't believe that all traffic is created equally. There's certain segments of traffic that you'd prefer. What makes good traffic and what's bad traffic, so we can diagnose that in our own businesses?
So I think good traffic is finding people who have intention to engage with your business or your brand. I think intention speaks heavily. I think intention is everything. And if they're coming to your site without an intention to possibly buy your services or your product, you've probably lost appetite and dollars there. And your client maybe become frustrated over time. And so it's very important to understand, the traffic that's coming to your site. There's lots of brands out there, or I should say lots of agencies out there I've seen. And we've seen this personally coming in and been taking over accounts that, in my opinion, have been maliciously abused, where there's been agencies that have come in, promised a lot and just grabbed ad dollars, collected their cut, not produced results, and they just cut and run, go find the next client that they can grab dollars from, burn and take off. And so did they deliver traffic? Yes. But when you go back and look at the data, they didn't understand the avatar. They didn't understand the campaign, and they frankly didn't do right at all by the client. And so I think not all traffic is created equal. And I think it's very understand. You want traffic in your pipeline that is very, very well intentioned on engaging with the client's business.
Yeah, I love those insights, Justin, because it gives us an insight into the way that you work as well. Even hearing the way that you talk about, you acknowledge and you appreciate what people have gone through with other marketing agencies. You're very aware of your space. I'd love a little bit of a behind the scenes look into what makes Growth Factor so special, because when you're onboarding with someone, it sounds like you've got different team members that are super intimate and you are not afraid to look at it. I mean, you've said the word top down, and I'm a visual person. I very much view it as you look at their website, you look at their ecosystem, you look at their products, their services, the way they offer it, all of those different channels. What's that onboarding look like, especially with to consider the fact that a lot of people probably have never worked with a marketing agency like yours?
Yeah, so when we bring a client on, what we really like to do is we like to listen to what their goals and objectives are. And from there, we really go back in, we try to do an audit, understand like what their previous campaigns have looked like if they've worked with an agency. If they've never worked with an agency, we try to get all the branding, understand the story, get as much content as we can. If they've struggled to convert, we typically will recommend like a CRO audit. And then we try to build a picture of everything that's been there previously. And then we try to pave a path forward that goes from, where they're at to where their goals are. And then how do we get them from here to here in the most profitable, executable way possible. And that I think is, part of the onboarding is creating, again, expectations and being real with them. I think there's a lot of companies, I think we've seen it a lot during COVID, where there was a lot of people creating businesses. They were trying to take dollars really fast. There were a lot of small businesses that were struggling. And so there was a lot of people really going after them, and did a disservice to marketing agencies that didn't really have the manpower or the experience to provide proper structure and proper planning and proper implementation. And so what happened is you had a lot of people kind of get a bad taste in their mouth, and that's because these agencies were not being upfront and honest with, here's how long it's going to take, here's what we need to implement first, here's what it's going to cost you, and here's what you can expect in return if we do all these things that we are suggesting. And I think being very professional upfront and just being very truthful with your client is going to yield the best long-term relationship. When we onboard a client, we don't want to just take their money. Yes, we're in the business of making profit, but we only profit if they profit. And so building a partnership where we're trusted, they trust us to advise them, goes a long way. And not only that, you will reduce your churn rate as an agency, and you will keep clients on longer because they have developed trust and respect and a working relationship with you.
Yeah, I really appreciate those insights as well as, of course, the attitude that you bring to this conversation, Justin. Again, to lay some more public appreciation on the way that you operate. You practice what you preach. Even in our conversation today, it just feels like there's no holds back, which is why I'm going to ask you a tricky question that, again, I've never asked a marketer, especially on air here before. And that is, what do you do? Part of this question is managing client expectations, but part of it is also a strategic question of what do you do in those cases where a campaign or a funnel or something that you've mapped out isn't working? And of course, you pivot and you adapt to those conditions. And you, of course, love data as well to make those strategic decisions. But what does it look like if maybe, an ad campaign just straight up doesn't work, or maybe a targeted keyword as part of an SEO strategy isn't working? I'd love to hear about how you manage those conversations, and then how you know when it's time to pull the plug versus when it's time to double down and say, hey, results are around the corner. You can't expect SEO results in 2 weeks. We need to stay the course. How do you know strategically when to stay that course versus make that strategic pivot and say, okay, let's target something that we feel is going to work?
I think it highly depends on how close you are to the objective, and it's going to depend on what direction you want to go. Do we want to risk maybe completely pulling a campaign, pivoting, getting new content and creative together and getting that pushed out quickly? Or do we want to modify what we're doing and either increase or decrease budget, cut bottom of campaign ad sets and reallocate funds to the ones that are performing? I don't think there's any one right answer, but I think, again, it goes back to that client relationship, having the honest conversation with the client. Very specific story example from over the Black Friday holiday weekend. Like, I was out in the middle of the woods. It was like right after Black Friday. The weekend had been going really well. I was out getting a hunt, and that weekend was like 25 feet up in a tree. And we had this like client that reached out to us. The campaign wasn't necessarily performing as expected. Getting on a phone call in the middle of a tree stand is not ideal as a hunter, right? Because now you're no longer like hunting. You're now in the middle of a conference call in the woods, and other people probably don't appreciate that they're out there. But it's that relationship, them understanding, okay, I'm here, but I'm here for you, even at this moment. This is important, and we're going to do right by you. We made some decisions. We acted on those decisions. An hour and a half later, we had a plan. We executed on that plan, and the weekend went fantastic, and they had their best Black Friday online they've ever had. So I think it goes back again to having that trust, that relationship, and them knowing that you are in it with them, and you're in it for them to win.
Yes, I love that real life story, Justin. It is such a perfect example about your commitment to the people. That's why I knew that today we'd hardly talk about marketing. Of course, we are very much talking about marketing, but you're also introducing us to that really growth-oriented mindset, the people component. So many of your answers keep coming back to that. And that's why I want to switch gears a little bit and talk to you not only as a subject matter expert, but the fellow entrepreneur that you are. And you've worked with so many cool brands, even in your professional career before launching Growth Factor. Talk to us about that difference. Now you've been at the helm of Growth Factor. Your team is already incredibly successful, doing really cool and meaningful work. What's that transition been like to the life of a CEO who's running an incredible brand?
It's been really awesome. It's for years I've been the director of operations for a really big, well-known company. Previously, I was the vice president at a really well-known agency that was responsible for taking companies digital, like Black Rifle Coffee and some other big brands. Earlier this year, my business partner and I, we decided to start our own agency. We officially started right at the beginning of February. And we've already hit $1 million this year in run rate. And we're absolutely crushing it. And I'm very thankful because my business partner, Cameron Torr, has a lot of experience as an entrepreneur himself. He currently owns a company called RE Factor Tactical and TZ Knives. He was also the co-founder of Tor Knives, which is a very famous knife company. And to be able to leverage my skill set and his skill sets together as founder and co-founder and CEO and COO has been amazing. I wouldn't be able to do it without him, and he has been there every step of the way in helping develop the business, the brand, helping us align with strategic partners, and helping us get where we're at today. And we have huge things planned going into next year, and I honestly wouldn't be able to do it without him by my side.
Yes, I love that. And huge kudos and celebration to you and your entire team. $1 million year one is honestly an incredible achievement, and we very much celebrate that. Justin, I'm pretty sure we could do this all day long. It's been such a pleasure having you on, but I want to squeeze one more big, broad question because I have no idea which direction you're going to take it in, and that is your best piece of advice. With that entrepreneurial hat on, someone who's growing a really fast-growing agency and team and deeply serving all of your amazing clients, what's that one piece of advice that you would impart on entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs at all different stages of their own growth journeys?
If you believe in it, don't be afraid to risk it. Just have a contingency plan and go at it with everything you have, and just know that you will fail. But as long as you are not willing to quit, you will be successful in the long run.
Boom. A huge difference between failure and quitting. Failure isn't fatal. One of my favorite quotes of all time. Such good advice from you there, Justin. I so deeply appreciate that. I personally also know that a lot of listeners, we've talked about marketing many times here on the show, but I think that it's very safe to say you have such a different and holistic, I'm going to steal the word that you've used a few times in our conversation today. You have such a holistic view of all of these things that listeners will be super keen to check out all the great things that you and the entire team are doing over at Growth Factor. So Justin, tease us a little bit about what's to come in the new year with Growth Factor and drop those links on us. Where should listeners find you from here?
Yeah, you can check us out at growthfactorco.com. You can follow us on Instagram as well at Growth Factor Company. Really looking forward to 2025. We just partnered with Clandestine Media Group going into SHOT Show, which is one of the largest industry conventions in the world in Las Vegas. And I fully expect that we're going to more than double next year. And we just signed on a really major company called Atlantic Signal, and I'm really excited for what we have in store for the new year with a lot of the clients that we're going into 2025 with.
Yes, I love that. Listeners, you already know the drill. We're making it as easy as possible for you to find all of Justin's links down below in the show notes section, no matter where it is that you're tuning into today's episode. His business website is at growthfactorco.com. Just click right on through. You don't have to remember that or anything. We're also linking to Justin's socials, his LinkedIn account, if you want to reach out and continue the conversation. This is the CEO who's thinking so strategically and growth-oriented that if you want to have a marketing conversation with him or connect him with someone that you know, you see the path that he's on. So Justin, on behalf of myself and all the listeners worldwide, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks, Brian. I appreciate it.